So, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of Cannabis Unlocked. Today, I'm very excited to be hosting Jason Beck, the host of High at Nine News. Jason, how are you today?
I'm amazing, Jordan. Thank you so much for having me on today. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely, absolutely. I really enjoyed being on your show a couple weeks ago, and so I wanted to have you on to have a little bit of an interview and learn a little bit more about your background in the industry.
Yeah, no, most definitely, man. I'm happy to help contribute and whatnot. I'm a pretty much an open book. I'm the longest continuous retail operator of cannabis in the United States, so I have a lot of lot of tales and know all the players involved, so to say.
Absolutely. Well, that sounds like a great place to start then. Why don't we talk about how you first got involved in cannabis retail?
I basically had a pager and I turned it into a storefront. I mean, I started in cannabis's infancy in San Francisco back when there was probably only about 15 dispensaries in the entire country, let alone, just in California. We only had it in about four municipalities in California, San Francisco being one of those municipalities, Oakland, Marin, Berkeley, and then there was one store back then in Los Angeles, in West Hollywood, known as the LA Patient Resource Center. That was pretty much all that was around back then, back in those times.
Yeah. And how did you first get interested in cannabis, even before there was a legal industry?
I mean, I'd always had an interest in cannabis, and whatnot. 1996, when medical cannabis passed, that was actually the very first year that I was eligible to vote, and my
Mhm.
very first vote that I ever cast as a U.S. citizen was for Proposition 215, and I knew if that passed, that was going to be my career path going
Mm.
forward. And so, that did pass in November of 1996, and man, I can't believe where we are today. The landscape from 1996 to 2004. I mean, we're almost approaching the 30-year anniversary in just, little less than 2 years from now.
Yeah, that's crazy. So when did your dispensary first open its doors?
I first opened my dispensary in 2001
Mhm.
in San Francisco. Um, we were probably like one of 15 in the entire state. The store was at 442 Haight Street, and that's in between Webster and Fillmore in the lower Haight in San Francisco. And man, what a different time that was. Back then, the lower Haight was very, very much crime ridden. I used to
Mhm.
have probably 40 or 50 black guys standing outside my door selling crack during that time.
Mhm.
And it was very, very different than the typical scene that you encounter in a lot of neighborhoods nowadays when one goes to procure cannabis.
Yeah. Yeah. And if I remember correctly, back in those days, they were still even doing DEA raids of state legal cannabis dispensaries. Is that right?
Yeah, I've actually been raided three times by the Drug Enforcement Administration. Never at my location in San Francisco, but in 2004, I was invited by a recommendation from the Board of Supervisors in San Francisco to the city of West Hollywood because the city of West Hollywood was looking for a credible operator. That's because um, that's because during the Bush 2 administration, he came into West Hollywood and closed down the LA Patient Resource Center that I had previously mentioned.
Hmm.
Um, and the city of West Hollywood had actually invested $775,000 into the purchase of that real estate. And the Justice Department actually seized that building from the city of West Hollywood back then. And so they were looking for some credible operators to come down and operate in West Hollywood, to which I was more than happy to oblige to help assist the city of West Hollywood in those efforts. Now, 1996, I think it's important for people to understand that medical cannabis passed Proposition 215 passed by 78% of the voting population in San Francisco, but it passed by 82% of the voting population in West Hollywood. And the only reason that we have a cannabis industry today is because of the AIDS epidemic and the damage that did on the HIV, AIDS, and gay communities in those municipalities. And the reality of it is, if we didn't have the HIV/AIDS epidemic, it's very possible that we don't have a cannabis industry today, and we still live under those draconian drug laws of the 80s.
Is that because folks with HIV/AIDS were using cannabis to treat their symptoms?
Correct. Yes,
Gotcha.
and a number of people that were dying and debilitating and whatnot found relief from cannabis, and oftentimes for a number of those patients, cannabis was the only thing that they could use that would help them actually keep food down and whatnot. And so the public sentiment for passing medical cannabis was a lot better than what I would say it is today in
Hmm.
that sense. There was a lot
Yeah,
more. I don't know if I would necessarily use the word sympathy, but I would say that there was a lot more heartfelt acceptance for the plant during that time because of the relief that it was providing sick people relief from during those days.
totally. So what was that experience of being rated like?
It's well, being rated is kind of like if do you play video games, Jordan?
Back in the day.
You have. Okay.
Mhm.
So imagine that you're playing a video game before there was a memory card, and you're about to beat the game. You've beat all the bosses, and you've got all the best weapons and all the money and all the everything like that and this and that. And then all of a sudden your little brother or sister comes over and hits restart on the game and you lose everything. Well, that is what being rated by the DEA is like in real life.
Wow. Yeah, that's crazy.
Hmm. It's like, oh my God, you have to start your whole life all back over. It's like starting off from scratch. And it's been rough. Like I don't want to, it's been a struggle every day. And like I said, I've been rated 3 times by the DEA over the years, once under Bush, twice under Obama,
Mm.
never under Trump. And
Mm.
it's been rough. I mean, I've even been a victim of some popular things that people are talking about now. And it looks like the Trump administration is going to reverse those policies of Operation Choke Point.
Mm.
I was debanked early on in the Obama administration, hadn't had a bank account since then. And and never really understood why or knew why, other than the fact that when I would go into a bank and try to open up a bank account, they would deny me, and I would say why, and they wouldn't be able to tell me anything or any reason why or anything, and like basically give me no information. I'm just like left there like I don't understand what is going on. And for years I couldn't figure it out until I actually learned about Operation Choke Point and what it did by allowing these bureaucrats to be able to just deny services to U.S. citizens in the banking service financial community because they were deemed to be part of a so-called unsavory type of business. And this doesn't affect just people in cannabis. This affects gun manufacturers. This affects a whole host of other types of businesses. Even tobacco industry is affected by this to some degree.
Wow. So you mentioned that you haven't had a bank account since then.
Correct.
Gotcha. Have you been able to find like other state chartered banks or credit unions to work with, or how have you been able to, manage the cash inflows and outflows?
No, I mean, I've always believed in cash as king and always just focused on cash. And that's been
Yeah.
kind of, if the banking system doesn't want to accept me, then we need to make sure that we're finding ulterior ways to creatively get around that, that are still within a legal framework. And that has definitely been tricky. And those are what I would call, some more insider secrets that I, you know, that would be on the Patreon subscription for this episode.
Sure, fair enough. And so how have you seen the market in California change when it flipped to adult use?
There was a lot of hope and aspirations from everybody that all of a sudden we were going to become a very much thriving market. And I think, the first few months that was the thriving point when there was a lot of high excitement about the cannabis industry going legal and
Hmm.
being able to serve anyone 21 and sober and whatnot. But over time, that has really just decimated itself. And there's been a lot of blunders throughout that. Prop 64 has been detrimental, I would say, overall to the cannabis industry overall because of the high regulation, high cost of doing business, the overtaxation, and for brands, the lack of retail outlets due to the fact of the League of Cities and so many other municipalities having local control and not
Mm,
allowing for cannabis businesses to to inhabit in their municipalities. I mean, if you I know that there was some polls done of voters, and when adult use passed in 2016, there was some polling done of voters of saying, "Hey, when you voted for this, did you anticipate that there would be retail establishments in your municipality?" And an overwhelming majority of voters believe that to be the case, but that has not shaped out in California. I mean, we just covered a story just yesterday on High at Nine News where the state of New York is considering putting a cap on retail licenses. And it sounded like to me, the basis for them putting that cap on retail licenses is based off of how many retail stores California currently has open in operation. And to me, that is just half-ass backwards of a free and open market.
yeah.
You know, and California should not be the example of anything other than quality cannabis, because every single legislative thing that we have pretty much done here has been things to low or excuse me, to increase barriers to access as opposed to actually lowering them. Even though that a lot of these legislative acts are designed in the mask of providing access and whatnot, it has not been that case at all.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. And one of the things that we hear is that there's probably 5x the supply still in California on the illegal market relative to the legal market. And how do you think about that? How do you view the competition from the black market and why it's been able to maintain such a strong foothold in the state?
Well, I mean, a lot of it is due to the fact that there's such erroneous taxes
Mhm.
involved in cannabis. I mean, you have cannabis being taxed as, as little as like 35% to as much as 45%, depending on the municipality that people are purchasing at it from. And a lot of the times I think a lot of it too is the cannabis industry's fault, because we've sold this to a lot of the legislators as far as being a safety net or a way for them to recoup resources that they have otherwise uh, spent, so to say, or misappropriated, so to say, as far as not being fiscally conservative with their own budgets, and has just been painted as this cash cow. And the industry is reaping the benefits of big government coming in and just really just pillaging the industry in that sense.
Yeah, makes sense. So you mentioned High at Nine News, which I believe is the most viewed cannabis news show in the country. Is that right?
We are America's #1 daily cannabis news show, High at Nine News, airing at 9 a.m. Pacific and high noon on the East Coast every Monday through Friday. Everything you need to know to grow, develop, and pivot in the ever-changing cannabis industry.
I love it. I love
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
So tell me more.
We have so we cover 6 stories a day on our show, all delivered by different correspondents with different type of political ideologies, as well as different experiences within the cannabis space and sector and whatnot. So then that way we're able to offer people a wide variety of perspectives and host a lively discussion and debate a lot of these issues that are plaguing the cannabis industry currently today. And although we all will argue, bicker, and disagree with one another, we are all friends. We all believe that cannabis should be descheduled, and we all want the best for our communities and for our industry overall. And
Yeah.
how that shapes out a lot of times is, like with politics, a lot of people want to eat the sausage, but they don't want to know how the sausage is made.
Yeah, totally. And so how did you get involved with High at Nine News?
That kind of started during COVID.
Mhm.
Um, we actually I participated in a show that started on Clubhouse originally, and the person who originally started that show wanted to stop the show, and I was like, I'm not going to stop what we're doing and bringing this type of information to the community or whatnot." And so we basically stopped doing that show on a Friday, and I started High at Nine News as a video audio show on that that following Monday. And so our first air of High at Nine News was on August 22nd of 2022. And we've been
Mm.
doing a live daily show every weekday ever since, regardless of holidays or whatnot or any of that.
Wow, that's incredible.
Mhm.
Yeah. And have you found interest continues to tick up, even though the last few years in cannabis have been a challenge for the legal markets?
Well, I think the more the challenge, that just gives us more to talk about on High at
Mhm.
Nine News. Like I said, we cover 6 stories a day, and I always find it wondering like if we're going to fill that sixth story, but usually week after week, there's more stories that come out that there's always an abundance of stories that so we don't actually cover everything, and we cover 30 stories in a week. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
that's a lot of news overall
Yeah.
for the cannabis industry, nationwide and abroad to be pumping out.
Yeah. Are there any areas you found within the cannabis industry that were specifically noteworthy in 2024 or anything in 2025 that you're looking out for?
Well, I think I'm definitely keeping my eye on what the new iterations of the Farm Bill are going to be,
Hmm.
following all of these different states that are trying to enact these different hemp bans or whatnot. I don't see how any of these states really have the ability to enforce on a lot of it, and I don't think that our tax dollars should be using to be enforced on drug war 2.0 after they're saying and proliferizing how, oh, we're making legalization and no one should be in jail for a plan and this and this and that and whatnot. And they always like to use these different sayings to gaslight their constituent base or whatnot. But yet it seems like in more and more municipalities and states, we just are finding a new way to create the drug war 2.0, so to say, in a lot of ways. Like Gavin Newsom here in California is trying to enact a hemp ban and whatnot in the name of the Save the Children, but it's just all total BS.
Yeah, totally. And I think folks had a lot of high hopes for the Biden administration when it began, especially with the blue wave, that federal reform would happen quickly. Obviously, that didn't happen. How are you feeling now with the Trump administration coming in a Republican controlled Congress?
Well, let me tell you a story. So first of all, you should also know that I am known as the highest Republican. I actually own that domain. That is one of my websites. And yes, I came up in Democratic cities, West Hollywood and San Francisco. Um and and I kind of I needed the industry to evolve. You know what I'm
Mm.
saying? Like the Democrats were always with us or whatnot and whatnot. And so I decided to work my side on the Republican side because I knew that my personal story, as far as having cerebral palsy and whatnot, could really resonate with Republican members and could move the needle in that sense. And so at that point in time, I decided to stop all of my local and state efforts in California and focus strictly on the federal side. And at that point in time, I became a finance chairman and point person on cannabis policy and messaging for Congressman Rorbacher. And
Mm.
together we created the Rorbacher Farr Amendment as well as got that passed actually 10 years ago, just this last Monday. Was the first time that
Wow.
it actually signed. And that's a single piece of federal legislation that has allowed for the growth of the industry overall that we all witness across the country today.
Mhm.
For those that are unfamiliar with that bill, that's a federal appropriations bill that prohibits the DOJ and DEA from extrapolating federal funds to go after state licensed cannabis businesses. And so that has been the single piece that has allowed the industry, like I said, to grow into what it is today. And so that's kind of where how we've gotten here, and
Yeah.
the more states have passed legalization bills or medical bills or whatnot, and the industry has just continued to grow. I think we're at 38 states now that have some form of legalization or access on the books, whatever you want to call it. I know a lot of
Mhm.
people don't like to use that word legalization because it's like legalization with loopholes or legalization with sand traps, so to say, or even possibly could say quicksand.
Mm. Yeah. Wow. No, and I agree. I mean, that's a incredible achievement that you had in getting that passed, and like you said, has been instrumental for getting the cannabis industry to where we are today. So congratulations on that.
Well, if we didn't have quality leaders like Congressman Rohrabacher, carrying the water at that time, I think we would live in a very different type of situation where we were still encountering DEA raids.
Mhm.
I don't, if you think that capital markets are constrained now on cannabis, if you throw in DEA raids and asset forfeiture, I'm pretty sure the capital markets would be even drier than the desert that it is now.
Totally, totally. So,
Yeah.
as the highest Republican, I mean, how have you seen both the Republican electorate as well as the Republican leadership change on this issue over the last 30 years, last 10 years, last 5 years?
Oh, that actually ties into the previous question that you just asked. I'm sorry, I totally messed up and forgot to carry on the other answer. You were asking me also too in regards with hope for this administration
Mhm.
and whatnot. And so I never had any hope in the Biden administration, first of all, that they were going to get anything done.
Mhm.
Joe Biden was an avid drug warrior. He was the author of the '94 crime bill. And even when Kamala Harris was our district attorney in San Francisco, she was not a friend of the cannabis industry. There were
Mhm.
still prosecutions that happened when she was in the district attorney's office, as well as when she was the California Attorney General. There were still camp raids and different things like that that were still ongoing under her tenure. So I don't know why everyone thinks that Kamala Harris was this God's gift to cannabis or whatnot.
Mhm.
I'm not a fan of Schedule 3 at all whatsoever. I think it creates some damaging things that could happen to the cannabis industry, whether or not it does or not, it has the ability to. And if you look at how laws are written, Schedule 3 drugs, so basically right now as a Schedule 1 drug, our only governmental agency that would have oversight over us would be the Drug Enforcement Administration or the DOJ, which hands are tied due to the Rorbacher Farr Amendment, which is now known as the Blumenauer-McClintock Amendment. Um, Now, once you goes to a Schedule 3, then at that point, the FDA has involvement, and the FDA already has drug preclusion on CBD for Epidiolex and THC for Marinol, and the FDA regulates everything by the molecule as opposed to the substance. And so bringing the FDA involved basically will every single product any dispensary shelf throughout the entire country would be deemed illicit product because none of it has gone through an FDA process to
Mhm.
be a certified product or medicine or anything else that you want to, classify it under in order to be sold as a consumer packaged good. You also have the uh uh oh man, what's it called? Son of a uh the Food, Drugs, and Cosmetic Act also too. You know what I'm saying? And that kind of governs all packaged goods. And basically in every legalized state or whatnot, it all becomes a consumer packaged good at the end of the day. And so I really, really worry about that. And I think that's just a
Mhm.
play for big pharma to come in and purchase up all the MSOs and really control cannabis in that kind of manner. So, I don't think that it's a good thing. I'm not a supporter of Schedule 3 at all whatsoever. And now going back with Trump, I was a Trump supporter very early on. Um, uh, I actually helped them with their messaging as far as in the 2016 campaign, as far as crafting Trump's messaging, where Trump came out and voiced support for medical cannabis. I helped work on that on that messaging during his campaign. And I remember 2016. That was also the same year that Trump won his first presidential race, was also the same time that in California we voted Prop 64 in as
Mhm.
well, which was the
Mhm.
legalization of cannabis or quasi legalization of cannabis, whatever you want to call it. Um, and I was at the Prop 64 party. And I think me and only one other person was the ones cheering in the entire crowd. Everyone else had these sad sorrow faces and whatnot. Oh my God, oh, Hillary lost. I can't believe this. Oh. But yeah, I was like, oh, this is the best thing ever for cannabis. This is the best thing
Mhm.
ever because, we were all optimistic and hopeful that when Clinton was our president, that he was going to be kind to cannabis and whatnot. But there were a number of different raids that happened on during Clinton's. He closed down Sixth Street. Now, when he closed down Sixth Street, and that was pretty much one of the only stores that was open in San Francisco at the time. When they came and raided Sixth Street and closed that down, a whole bunch of the different managers went and opened up more shops in San Francisco. And so you went from having one store in San Francisco to having about, 10 or 12. And so, it was good for the growth of the industry, but overall the perception and whatnot. So I knew that Hillary Clinton was not going to be any type of fan of cannabis or whatnot, that was never going to be the case. But
Hmm.
yet a lot of times people in our industry, they only think that Democrat is good and Republican is
Hmm.
bad. And I think a lot of people have been misled a lot by the Democrats in that. I mean, even most recently, you have Chuck Schumer, the Senate Majority Leader, saying that the reason that he's not putting safe banking up for a vote is because of the fact that that the Republicans won't allow him. Well, let me tell you something. When you're the Senate Majority Leader, you dictate what happens. You dictate what bills get floor time and what bills get voted on. And so for him to try to pawn that off as Republicans won't allow him is just a real lack of leadership.
Hmm.
And then you also had Senator Cory Booker out in New Jersey when safe banking was going to pass, um, under Chuck Schumer's tenure as a Senate Majority Leader, grandstanding, saying that unless we get more social justice inclusions into the thing, that it's a travesty for us to pass safe banking and allow for the industry when that's what the industry needed.
Yeah.
Now, when during Trump's first year, we had Cory Gardner as the lead sponsor. He was the Republican lead sponsor out of Colorado, um, and uh, and we worked with the Trump administration to have him signal to say, and he signaled and said, "Get a bill to my desk and I'll sign it." And that was the crafty messaging that we worked with them to come up with for him to signal like, "Hey, get safe banking to my desk and I'll sign it." And you know weren't able to get that to pass the finish line at that time, but nonetheless,
Hmm.
we would have had the votes, and Trump would have signed that into law
Hmm.
had that been able to pass the Senate and the House. Then all of a sudden, you had all the Colorado activist Democrats want to trade in the strongest Republican Senate guy and senator for then at that time Governor Hickenlooper, who is not a fan of cannabis in that sense, but all they wanted he ran for Senate against Cory Gardner, and all the Democrats backed him, and they what I'm saying, they threw out our lead Republican water carrier in the Senate for
Hmm.
John Hickenlooper, because of political ideology, and that to me is just ridiculous.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, that is ridiculous. Now,
And
how about when Sessions rescinded the Cole memorandum? Did you see that coming? Was that kind of a major issue for
you
the industry at
know,
that time?
um, so that I don't understand why the industry puts so much emphasis on the Cole memo and whatnot. The reality is the Cole memo doesn't do anything, never did anything. It was simply a directive for people to act, but actually had no enforcement power. And I don't understand why activists think that the Cole memo is this God's gift to the industry, because it actually doesn't do anything, has never did anything, is nothing more than a piece of paper.
Hmm. Fair enough.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
whatever,
yeah.
whatever.
So you mentioned you're not in favor of rescheduling. Would you prefer that cannabis be descheduled altogether? Is that your
Yeah.
perspective? Yeah.
Yeah, my perspective is leave it as a Schedule One or deschedule it, one or the other. There is no if ands or buts about it. Um, a lot of the MSOs and people want to have 280E relief or whatnot, from a Schedule 3 type of output. But to me, schedule moving it a trade-off to Schedule 3 isn't worth only 280E in my
Hmm.
perspective, with the type of things that I already previously discussed on this episode with you, as far as the type of ramifications that it could have on the industry, which could be devastating. I mean, I don't know. I mean, maybe GTI might be the only MSO that can pay to maybe get 3 or 4 SKUs through a whole entire FDA process. Not to mention that takes about 10 years.
Right.
So, you know what I mean? I mean, truly blew their whole load on Amendment 3. And you know what I mean? And a lot of that money was their 280E liability money. So like, it's gonna be interesting to see what happens going forward. And not to mention that too, is even if it is rescheduled, um, a lot of these MSOs are like, oh yeah, we're going to eliminate 280E. Well, eliminating 280E is not retroactive. You still have the same bills and tax burden that you had previously. It's not like all of a sudden it's retroactive from your date of inception or whatnot, and all of a sudden you're going to get this big tax credit.
Right. Sure. Sure. We have heard that there's deliberations to have it be backdated 3 years. Who knows if we actually get that, but it would be huge if so.
That's all speculation and wishful thinking. I'll put it to you like this. You know what I think is more likely? I think it's more likely that Doge will come in and eliminate the whole IRS more than you're going to get backdated 280E legislation.
Sure. Fair enough.
But yeah, I'm excited to see what Doge does. I've
Me
always
too.
wanted to see the government run as a business or a corporation or whatnot, and so I'm a big fan of sitting back and watching this, and I'm just going to be sipping on my on my beverages, watching along.
So, in addition to running High at Nine News, you have a number of other prominent roles in the industry. Would love to ask you about your role with Cannabis Intelligence Alliance.
Oh, I mean, that's just like an online group of information that we have compiled as far as lots of spreadsheets and whatnot of all the different types of operators, and a real access point, so to say, or resource guide, to help people navigate within the industry. It's probably one of the most comprehensive spreadsheets that I've ever seen. It's all broke down by industry, broke down by state, and has a very comprehensive list of all the licensees in pretty much every single sector with their addresses, phone numbers, and everything else like that. My friends that worked on putting that together, they spent a lot of time on that, and they've done a phenomenal job with that.
Wow. So, folks want to check that out. Do they have to purchase it, and where can they go to find it?
Yeah, they would just basically send us a message and let us know that they had an interest in purchasing access to that information.
Got it. Great.
Mhm. Yeah.
And then, how about your role as the legislative director for the American King Foundation?
Oh, the American King Foundation. So that was founded by my good friend Angela Stanton King. Um, uh, Angela Stanton King. She was instrumental in helping put together the First Step Act with President Trump. And Angela Stanton King was a victim of our criminal justice system, and she actually gave birth handcuffed, in prison. And
Wow.
she has a very, very incredible story. She's a very big pro-life advocate. She now has a charity called Auntie Angie's House, and that is built to help Black mothers be able to have a place to have their babies and care for their young when there might not be a dad around or other family members to help support that, to help slow down on abortion, because I'm big believers with her as well, as that the whole abortion thing kills more Black babies than it does anything else. And I don't believe that abortion should be a form of birth control in that sense. And if we are going to make it a form of birth control, then we need to make it so that men can opt out of child support, if that's the case.
Hmm. Wow. Wow. That's really crazy, crazy story.
Hmm. Yeah, and so it's really about supporting a Black life, and I hope more people help financially support Auntie Angie's House, and if anyone wants to get in touch with them, I'm more than happy to help create an introduction in regards to that. It's a fantastic charity. They do a lot of amazing work. They're based out of Atlanta, Georgia, and I can't say enough good things about Angela and the charity overall.
Yeah.
Angela was also an advisor for RFK when he was running his presidential bid, and whatnot. And we look forward to working with him on these issues going forward into the new administration.
Yeah. Same. How do you feel about him as incoming HHS director, and his stance towards cannabis?
I couldn't be more ecstatic. about that pick. President Trump has really put together a all-star team as far as I'm concerned, with all of the wide variety of Democrats, independents, and Republicans, to create like in essence like uh, a dream team
Hmm.
in the political world, to be able to get things done and really do the will of the American people, and not the corporate interests or the bureaucrats or whatnot that just want to save their jobs. I mean, even like Kash Patel, is going in to be the FBI director. He's already stated, there's 7,000 FBI agents in DC alone that are all desk jobs. Well, he said that on day one he's going in and making them all field officers and actually go out and have to do actual FBI work, or they're getting fired. And he said that he's going to turn the FBI building into a deep state museum, which
Hmm.
I can't. I'm going to be out there for the inauguration, and I can't wait to
Oh,
be one
wow.
of the first people to walk through and purchase a ticket to the deep state museum.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think Cash is going to do tremendous things for law enforcement. And if folks aren't as familiar with his policies, I highly recommend his book, Government Gangsters. Really, just he was instrumental in exposing the whole situation behind Russiagate, and was
Mhm.
instrumental in a lot of President Trump's biggest accomplishments in the first administration.
Yeah. Yeah. Most definitely. I mean, I was out there for a lot of it during Trump's first tenure. I was in DC, maybe, 10 days to 2 weeks, a month, minimum, out there working on cannabis issues. I was a registered federal lobbyist for cannabis at that time, and had a trade organization called the Global Alliance for Cannabis Commerce. And we were the first trade organization to ever come out with model legislation of everything that the U.S. would need to pass in order to have a robust cannabis economy to rival Canada and other pre-existing marketplaces, in that sense, and really be a big economic boost for America overall. And that model legislation that we crafted has since been introduced by Nancy Mace as the States Reform Act. So a lot of good work we got done, although GACC has since dissolved. That we still live on with the legislation that we crafted, and that was our main goal of creating initial policy that really benefited the cannabis industry and Americans overall.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Mhm.
And in addition to all of that, Jason, you have your own line of edibles, correct?
Yes. I just launched America's new #1 D9 gummy line, Parody Gummy, a politically themed gummy line to poke fun at all of our legislators. We have three amazing flavors. I actually have them all right here. We have the Bad Hombres. Oh, is this not going to show up?
Now it is. Yeah,
There we
there you can
go.
see it.
We
Yep.
have the Bad Hombres. This is a pineapple flavored gummy. And then we also have, if you're feeling the need, we have the Sleepy Joes as well. And of course, if you really want to turn up, we have my favorite of them all. We have the Raspberry Riots, complete with the J6ers, who are about to get vindicated, and I'll get out of jail pretty soon.
Amazing. And
Yep.
where can folks find your edibles?
You can order directly at www.parodygummy.com. That's www.parodygummy.com. And I will ship those out to you next day once we process your order. Now, we are also, too, just keep in mind, a victim of Operation Choke Point. So there are a few extra steps that once you place your order, I have to reach out and contact you and whatnot, to actually process your payment until we finalize a couple things on our website, which we hope to have finalized by the end of the year. But for anyone that's viewing this episode immediately, just know that you will be receiving an email from me to finalize pushing your order through, and I'll have that out in the mail to you either the next day or same day.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And where can folks find High at Nine News?
You can find High at Nine News directly on our website at www.highatninenews.com. You can read all the articles that we cover every day there. And you can watch our show live directly from our website, or you can find us on YouTube, Rumble, uh, We also have an Instagram account. You can watch us on X as well. We really hope that people will join us on X. We're really trying to build up that audience and have that audience compete with our YouTube audience. And going into 2025, we're looking to have our own Roku channel as well. And so we're working on
Oh, wow.
finalizing and creating that. And so in 2025, I think we will mainly be streaming on YouTube, Rumble, X, our website, and on our Roku channel. Those are going to be our main platforms that we want to focus our efforts on going into 2025. But we've had great growth, and we definitely want to thank all of the community members for supporting us through our first couple of years of delivering the news to everyone in the cannabis industry every day. We definitely appreciate all of the support. We just recently surpassed 5,000 subscribers on YouTube, and we hope to be at 10,000 or more by the time we hit to 420 of 2025.
Amazing. Well, you heard it, folks. Everyone who's listening today, please subscribe and follow High at 9 News, and we'll get you to that 10K subscriber count.
That would be super, super appreciated, Jordan. Thank you all so much for everything you guys do as far as helping to infuse much needed capital into a lot of these cannabis businesses with key investment partners. Because the reality is that capital is key to doing anything in cannabis.
Absolutely. Well, Jason, thanks again. This has been such a fun conversation.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much for having me, Jordan. I appreciate you, your time, and everyone involved with your show. And I hope you guys all have a very, very Merry Christmas, a very happy Hanukkah or Happy Kwanzaa, whatever you happen to be celebrating with your loved ones over this new year, and going into the holiday season and whatnot. So God bless. Thank you all so much.
God bless. Thanks, Jason. Same to
Take care.
you.
For sure. Have a blessed day.
Cheers.